Hello, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. We will give it a few moments, let some people join in. I'd like to thank you all for giving us your time on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. I hope it's beautiful for you. It's beautiful for me. That's the attitude you got to have to host successful events, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Just so everyone knows, you are in the right place. This is the spot to learn about hiring, engaging, and attracting people to your virtual and hybrid events. Okay. So I can't use Steve's line of being Army guy. I like to get started on time. I just like to get started on time. So we're going to go ahead and get things kicked off. Again, thank you all for joining me. My name is Zach Schiffler. I am the Director of Business Solutions here at Premier Virtual. I'm going to toss it over to our Director of Marketing, Mr. John Garcia. John, all yours.
Everybody, John Garcia, and welcome to the webinar today. I selfishly put this together because as the marketing director at Premier Virtual, we get asked, pretty much how do I get the candidates to register, and then how do I get them to the event, right? So that's why we wanted to put this webinar together. Those are the three main pillars of a successful event, right? We have to attract the right candidates. We have to engage them. So, because even after you register, many of us are guilty of it too. There's people that registered for this webinar, right, and didn't show up. So it's not just to register for the event, but it's attend the event. And then obviously with Premier Virtual, we've hosted, how many events, Zach, have been hosted?
Oh man, 8,000, 9,000 at this point.
So, you're talking to people that have a lot of experience here on this panel. We have a lot of great information, a lot of clients between all of us. So there is a lot of information, so we do want to get right into it. I want to briefly introduce everyone on the panel here, and then you can introduce yourself when you get started. But from Talroo, we have Barry Klein. Hello, Barry. And we have Michael Novi. Thank you guys for joining. And they'll be going through, obviously, the attract part. They're a premier partner of ours, and they are going to definitely help you find the right candidates for your event. Then we have Max over here from Engage by Sell, who I like one quote he says, we're the bus that drives the candidates to the event. So Max, we definitely want to know your strategies on that, and we'll be getting into it shortly. So kick it off, Talroo, hit us hard and let us know how to best really attract candidates for these hiring events.
Very good. Mike, you want to kick us off and I'll bring the slide deck up?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Michael Novi, Director of Strategic Alliances for Talroo. I oversee all of alliances, staffing relationships, and partnerships. Been in the HR and recruitment world for the last 8+ years, and I am going on my third year, almost 3 years in September of this year at Talroo. So looking forward to giving you guys a deep dive into what we do. I'll pass the baton to my colleague, Barry.
Thank you, Michael. And again, everyone, my name is Barry Klein. If you hover over our names, you will see that I am also being identified as Michael Novi. I'm perfectly proud to be called Michael Novi, but that's a quirk of Zoom. I am Talroo's Vice President of Success. Been with the company for just over 6 years now, and have overseen really all of the customer-facing and partner-facing functions at one time or another. So happy to be here with you all today, and it is my team that looks after the implementation and success of our hiring events.
Let me briefly interrupt. We are going to open for Q&A after each segment for a few questions, and we'll also double back at the end in case we've missed any. So just wanted to, you can ask the questions here in the chat and in the Q&A, we'll address them after each segment. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, John. So let me jump right into it. One of the first things that Talroo had to address, especially because we had released our events product maybe 9 months before the pandemic. And so quite germane to what we're discussing today in terms of virtual events, the world changed. And since no one could do anything in person, no in-person interviewing, no in-person events, everyone started to try to figure out what a virtual event was. And they really were trying to figure out what an event is. We had a number of customers who said, well, I have an event. And really what they meant was just sort of, sign up on our calendar for an interview anytime. It's open all the time. So as our product has evolved, it has allowed us to extend the definition of what we think the hiring event is, but it still has a specific location, specific times, and it's a one or short-term event to reach many, many people. So not everything is in our world an event, and that's okay. So an on-site job fair, an open house, a networking event, certainly anything on campus, and quite germane to what we're talking about today, a virtual hiring event, or as the folks at Premier Virtual speak about it, hybrid hiring events, which I'm sure we'll be talking about as well. But the idea is a singular place and time, maybe with time slots, whether it be virtual or in person. Certainly hiring at volume is what Talroo is best at, and hiring at volume is what events really are best at. The ability to customize it to your organization, recruit very efficiently, make offers on the spot, do interviewing on the spot. There is just such a great benefit to doing so, and I'll defer a lot of that to our ongoing conversation. But if you've been thinking about doing a hiring event, I'm very glad you're here. And especially because one of the things that we've been running into lately is when we speak to prospects who are trying to figure it out, the first question we've learned we need to ask them is, have you ever done one before? Because if they haven't done one before and they haven't attended an event such as this to get more educated, they can feel lost. So thank you very much for being here. And hopefully we will be able to answer a lot of questions for you. A little bit about Talroo. We do have a job advertising solution, but our events advertising layers right on top of that. So all the good technology that gets the right job seeker in front of the right job in front of the right job seeker in the right place at the right time, all of that is still applied to our events. One of the features that we offer within our events product, as opposed to our jobs advertising product, is the automation of reminders. But what's really compelling about being here today is we're going to talk a lot about the fact that automated reminders are a fine thing, but there's no substitute for engagement. There's no substitute for the personal touch. And also when you're looking at virtual events or hybrid events, that's why we're so glad that we are partnered on this with all three of us today, because it really flows very, very nicely together. But it is an important point, just to put a finer point on it. Talroo is the advertising layer. We will have customers often get confused because of other vendors. They might think, well, you're going to advertise and host my event. And we don't host if it's in person. I'm not going to show up with the donuts. And we don't host if it's virtual, because that's not what we do. That's why we have partners. And that's why we're here with Premier Virtual today. So think of us as a way to get the news out that you're having a hiring event. You need people to show up. And so how do you get started? We've learned over and over again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about, have you done one before? Have you thought about it? They don't have to be big parties. What are your business goals? When are you going to host it? What are you looking to get out of it? Our time slot's going to be interesting to you. Sometimes when it's just one big event and people wander in, you can be overwhelmed. And then other times there's nobody there. So what will serve you and your staff best? And to emphasize again, when you think about the kind of event you're going to host, you need advertising, Talroo. You need a platform, Premier Virtual, and you need the personal touch, Engage. And this slide deck, by the way, was not made first for this presentation. This is how we talk about it all the time. We did a webinar a few months ago just with Talroo, and these were the points that we were making. So do know that we're not making any of this up today. This is how we think about this, and this is why we're so grateful to be partnered. The number two thing, once you know what you're going to do, we're going to drive RSVPs for you. We're going to get your event out in the world. We have some unique ways of doing it. One of the things that Talroo does very nicely is we will advertise all of the jobs that are part of your event. You don't just have to advertise big hiring event and with a list of the roles you're hiring for. We will advertise each of those roles separately. So we start driving RSVPs. There's a brief registration page. Boom, someone says, I'm going to come. And as I mentioned, we will do automated reminders. Thank you for registering, et cetera, et cetera. But there is no substitute for a text message, encouraging people to complete a full application. Premier Virtual has features for resume and video resume upload. The better connected you can be before the event, the better your show rate will be and the better your hire rate will be, because people will be lazy. We all know this. They'll RSVP and then they don't show up. Now, the nice thing is with our solution, you always have those people to continue to market to, so they're part of your community, but the goal is to get them to get to the event. And there's no substitute for stepping in and building that rapport rather than having the person walk in as a stranger. One of the features within Talroo that I particularly love is that everything Talroo does, they are paid for ads, except this. If you're doing an event with Talroo, we will give you the link And when you share that through your network, through your social media, those are free to you. So we have one customer who I swear to you is gonna get some attention soon. They're doing events virtually for free because they're getting so much traction from their social media. And I'm tickled by it because I want to learn from them and I want to know what they're doing. And I want more of our customers doing that to drive more value to you, to get that cost per RSVP price on average down as low as it can be. Certainly you want to tell job seekers what to expect when they show up. Where are they going to park? Are there going to be prizes, refreshments? How should they dress? Should they bring a resume? Do they need an ID? You don't want people to walk in and be surprised. And they're putting in the effort to be there either in person or virtually. And everyone should be aligned as to what you're looking for, and what you're looking for and what you expect of the candidate. Length of advertising time is an often overlooked thing to consider. From our experience, that you can in fact advertise for too long a period of time. If you're at about 14 days and someone RSVPs, we're going to send the automated reminders. We would encourage you to work with Engage to make that more personal. But 2 weeks out, 20 days out, that's a long time for someone to then show up. We have found the optimal time is 7 to 10 days. The flip side, of course, is I would say this, and you would think it's logical, 2 or 3 days ain't going to be enough. So every now and then when someone is panicked, they want to get something live, and we can try, but that's just not enough time. But 7 to 10 days seems to be the.
Barry,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, if you can
Of course.
maybe shed some more context and clarity around the SMS text reminders, because I think we would all agree on this call right now that the candidate experience engagement is a tremendous variable in the job seeker experience. And with our events product, we do offer that SMS constant reminders all the way up until the designated hiring event. So I know you've been closer, you've been launching events over the last, in your tenure at Talroo. Just if you can shed some more context there on how that is a differentiator, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, in terms of our platform and what you get out of the box, the value of those automated reminders is remarkable. And we have been able to tweak it and experiment that we've learned that, of course, you remind the person in the moment. We send a reminder a few days out and then the day before. And for instance, for an in-person event, we're going to send them on the last reminder, we're going to send them a link to Google Maps so they can find you. If it's a virtual event, we will remind them of the link that they need to use and what they need to show up with. So, for customers who don't have the resources, who don't have the people, who don't have the other technology to leverage, we of course want to provide something right out of the box to nurture those leads and encourage them to show up, while always encouraging our customers to always add as much personal touch as they can. But this way, there's always something some means of communication going on with the candidate. Qualifying your candidates before they even show up is a huge issue. And Premier Virtual has qualifying tools that even go beyond what we do. But Talroo can ask some simple qualifying questions. If it were a trucking event, do you have a CDL license, right? If you're not a driver, don't register for the event. But there are other requirements that you might need to look for when they're willing to work, things like that. So you want to use the tools available to make best use of your time and your recruiter's time. And again, can't say it enough. Staying in touch with your candidates after the event. Many of them will not show, but with the Talroo product, you now have a community of people who you can continue to market to. And maybe they, emergencies come up. People in all good faith might have wanted to be there and they couldn't. So this gives you an opportunity to reach back out to your customers, automate it with, and by the way, we don't pick this up. So our automation ends with the event. But if you were working with a partner like Engage, keep the conversation going. Encourage people to come in. Maybe those jobs weren't right for them, but maybe you've got something perfect for them now. So one of the more valuable aspects of our solution is that you own these folks and you can continue to market to them. And as mentioned here, we will, depending on the nature of the customer, there are several who we have to encourage, don't make it about the event exclusively. Because if you're in Boston in February and you're doing an in-person hiring event, you'd better have a backup plan for when the weather turns on you, right? So you want to make sure you have a plan B and that you have follow-up after the fact. And this is this is our last slide. I can't emphasize this enough, and I get personally frustrated because we don't get enough feedback. I don't care if you're using Talroo or one of our competitors. We are thirsty for learning how you did. We want to learn from your experience. What was your show rate? What was your hire rate? The people you do hire, are they staying with you? Was the event long-term successful? Premier Virtual builds in analytics that you can use for after the fact. You want to know your numbers, especially because you want to judge the success or lack thereof of this event, and you want to learn from it for your future events. You know, maybe you did just virtual and now you want to do hybrid. Maybe you did in person and now you want to do virtual. Maybe you realize time of day. I had a long conversation with one of our account executives yesterday. What day of the week is best for an event? And I said, we've wanted to know that for 4 years. I said, you want my opinion? Monday.
Tuesday.
Because Monday is when people want to lose weight, quit smoking, join a gym, and find a job. So do your event on Monday. I don't know, because we don't get enough of this feedback from our customers in all camps. We have many happy events customers, don't get me wrong, but they'll tend to just move on to the next one, which is flattering. They hire us again, but I want the data, and you should want the data. So,
Well, Barry, thank you for that. That was great. I want to ask the hard question. Again, we are opening up the Q&A, so you guys could go ahead and ask some questions in there. FYI, chat is disabled. Zach, see if you could see if the chat, if you could fix the chat. If not, Sam, you can ask your questions here in the Q&A. But real quick, Barry, for someone who doesn't have a budget, right, a number to promote an event, how do you coach them through a budget that will work, right? I have $2,000 to hire 200 RNs. Is that going to work? What kind of expectations can you set? And then maybe just real quick, how do you come up with that information through your platform?
It's a great question. Talroo has actually quite sophisticated analytics that we make available to our customers and that we use, because the first thing we want to see is, based on the roles that you're hiring for, can we, as an attraction platform, provide enough traffic? Do we have enough individuals on a monthly basis clicking on and applying to your type of job? So that's the first thing we want to know. Do we have the volume or not? In terms of the math and creating the budget, you know, events don't reinvent the mathematics around cost per hire. So if you know your cost per hire and you know you want to hire a certain number of people, I would encourage you to do the appropriate math to see how much you should scale your event. But then you bump up against the ceiling of reasonableness. One thing that comes up frequently is folks will sometimes think that an event is a panacea, but we can't put more people into a community. We can't conjure human beings. And so if you know that, for instance, RNs is a good example. It's an expensive hire, right?
Yeah.
They're expensive. And so if we know that number and we know how many we need, I probably wouldn't put it all on one event. I might have a series of events. I might need a full budget and approach it from a few different ways. But all that being said, generally speaking, we find when you balance out the volume of hires in any given community for any one event, roughly speaking, $1,000 is a good place to start. It might be, and this is within the Talroo platform, it might be 2,000. We've done some for 5,000, but you reach a point where you physically can't reach enough people for a singular event.
Right. Yeah, there's diminishing returns because there's only so
Correct.
many people in the
Correct.
marketplace. Well, Barry, thanks again. We'll definitely get back to Talroo. You know, it's definitely obviously as a marketing director near and dear to my heart, because that's what people are asking me to, you know, to do, to get people to the events. We appreciate your partnership and helping us with the tools that you have. We'd like to move on. Zach, do you have anything to add at this point?
No. A lot of great points were made. I'm going to add my points at the end of the call so we can kind of tie everything together. I did see that there was one question in the chat, but I was pointing out to the chat being disabled. Please know everyone in the chat is now able. Thank you for your patience. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to place them in the chat or raise their hand. With that being said, no, I have nothing to add right now. I will toss it over to Max with Engage Myself.
Perfect. Thank you, gentlemen. I'm upset, Barry, that you didn't bring donuts. I wanted to point that out right off the bat. I could use that. It's my Monday, so let me share my screen real quick, and then we'll jump into Engage by Sell. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. So my name is Max. I'm a senior mobile solutions consultant. I work a lot with workforce development, hiring and recruiting, and all those different things kind of within that realm with the government and private sectors. but I'll talk a little bit about Engage by Sell. These are just some of our workforce development customers that utilize us a lot for hiring events and job fairs and maintaining that engagement and things like that. We have been in business now for, I believe, 16 years. And mainly all of our communications and engagement is based off mobile devices, right? So how do we turn these tools that every single person has on their person, literally from the time they go to sleep, it's probably right next to their head. When they wake up, it's in their hand, it's in their pocket, so it never stops. So that was kind of the main goal and mission, is how do we start utilizing these tools and incorporate them into hiring events and HR and training and all those different things, and just really engagement overall, right? How do we get these people to communicate with us and communicate effectively? So we really have two core technologies here. We have a text messaging platform, which, Michael, you'll probably be pleased that I'll talk a little bit to the point I think you're trying to get out of the effectiveness of texting, right? And kind of the statistics behind it. And then we also have a mobile web app, which looks, feels, and acts like an app, like a native app that you would download from an app store, but it's all URL based. And I'll go into kind of these two different platforms and explain how they work, and then how they kind of combined to drive this engagement process through the hiring and just community outreach and things like that. So kind of moving forward here, text messaging, right? So Michael, you had mentioned, the effectiveness of SMS through your Talroo platform, and that is with good intentions for sure. So kind of the age-old methodology was email, right? And even phone call kind of prior to that too, and then phone call kind of trickling past email too. But email anymore, and I'm sure John, being a marketing guru like yourself, a phenomenal email open read rate, nowadays we're looking at what, 10%, 15%, maybe, if you've really been out of the park.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, yep. So, when you're doing all this email push and community outreach and things like that, if you're getting that 10% respond rate, you're stoked, right? Versus text messaging, we've seen 98% open rate, and that seems outlandish, right? But think of it personally. Everybody has their phone on them right now. Let's look at our phones. How many unread text messages do you have currently? Probably none. And if you can see my personal Gmail in the corner there, I have 3,500 unread emails in my personal email account, right? And that's going to be fairly typical. John, what's your stats?
I have 5 unread, but I'll be honest, they're pretty old. So there's
yeah, and those are probably
yeah.
Steve, who we're not really worried about anyway. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yep. So kind of to the point there, the effectiveness is to get this information out to the people who are seeking those career opportunities, those education opportunities, the training opportunities, all those different reasons why we host these events, to gather people together, to better the jobs, to create, workforce development and things like that. Within our text message platform, obviously you can push URL links like reminders and alerts, and you can see a little example there on the side of the screen, how you can embed a little URL that can take them to whatever information that you have out there, whether it's for registering for that job fair, or if it's that resume uploader within Premier Virtual, or whatever, web-based information that you want. But the increased outreach, it's pretty obvious when you're utilizing text messaging. You can blanket market. So you send out 10,000 text messages and you get that 98% open read respond rate. And then our platform is a little bit different, that it can be inbound as well. So you can have that one-on-one conversation. So if I push out a big text message blast, and then Barry texts back and says, hey, what time is that job fair? Or where's it at? Or where's that link or whatever? I can then engage with that individual one-on-one and kind of build that rapport with them while I'm having that conversation.
But the company, is it a number that you created for them? It's obviously not to the person's personal.
Correct. Yep. So We help every single one of our customers attain a localized phone number to use through our platform. And we do that just because we see higher results when using a local area code, right? Typically speaking, if people are working or seeking, individuals looking for jobs, they want to text or engage with a number that's localized, right? I want to feel like, hey, if I'm looking for a job in Peoria, Illinois, and I'm texting a 309 area code number, I know that person's trying to help me and they live here, they care about it, things like that. So excellent question. I'll keep going, and I'm going to share at the end kind of an example of how the text messaging works. I'm going to have everybody text in, and then you'll also get a link to some of the mobile web apps. But moving forward here, so the mobile web apps, these are kind of moving forward, transitioning away from native apps. So native apps are in the sense that you have an actual hard download, right? So you would have to go to either Apple Store or the Android store and download that application. And we have just found that utilizing that technology, we created this download barrier, right? So it was preventing people from getting access to the information like the job posting boards and things like that. So we totally transitioned away from native apps and developed these mobile web apps that look, feel, and act just like a normal application does, only it's all URL based. So embed it in that text message, push it out, boom, you click that link, and there is all the information you could possibly ever want, right? And it's super easy to build these. It's all drag and drop content building. There's zero IT, zero HTML required. Kind of the analogy I use. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll vouch for that, Max. I mean, we use it all the time when we do trade shows and events. We customize our, giveaways, and we do QR codes. And I do it in 2 seconds. Steve calls me up. Hey, we got to make this change. We make the change on the back end. There's no technical, expertise. It really is drag and drop. So in that sense too, we love how the mobile app works, or the mobile web app.
In kind of the analogy I use all the time, John, if you can build a PowerPoint, you can build a mobile web app. Really that simple. And of course, kind of important to everybody, right, on both sides of the table, like Barry had covered, there is the analytics. How do I measure my ROI? So both on the text messaging and the mobile web app platforms, you have a full, robust reporting capability of how many text messages were sent, how many were received. If you embed a little URL link in that follow-up process while you're engaging with them post-event or even pre-event, things like that, and driving that conversation, you'll know, if I send a text message right now to Zach, John, Barry, and Michael, if, John didn't click that link, I'm going to have that statistic. And I'm going to know once John clicks that link, if that link takes him to one of my mobile web apps, that I'm going to see, hey, John went in there and he looked at this job board. He looked at this upcoming resume building opportunity or something like that. And I'm going to see how much time he spent on it, et cetera. All those different kind of important, robust training capabilities. But obviously, this is all about events and community outreach, but some good examples here, kind of like Barry had touched on with the automation process. And you kind of brought it up with leading up to the event, right, Barry? Ours gets utilized a lot on the back end of that. So you can automate the process to follow up. So once I attend that, virtual event, then afterwards, I'm day one getting a text message, click this link to upload your resume. Day 5, did you apply? Did you remember to do this? Just those little touches, those little drips of communication really personalize that experience and lead the charge in driving everybody to get into that hiring process, right? And again, you can store the event, like most people rely on us for having all the kind of event information post event for, where do you upload your resume and things like that, and the speaker lineup, and gathering the feedback with all the engagement with the comment boards and all the kind of little engagement tools involved in it. Now I'm going to have everybody try it real quick. So the call to action here is to text demo space workforce, or you can scan that QR code. So text demo workforce to 56512, or you can scan that QR code, and I'll do it with everybody as well. And you will get a text message back to learn more. What text message did we get back? Zach, did you do it?
To learn more about a career, education, and training opportunities, please click this link.
Yep, perfect. And if you click that link, it will take you to a web page with a little mobile web app that just kind of highlights some of the different workforce development boards that we work with and some examples of what one of these mobile web app pages can look like. Again, they utilize it for events, hiring, hot job boards, all those different things. Now I'm going to real quick kind of push out everybody who texted in. We'll get a text message here, and I'm going to push it out right now. Boom. And everybody who had subscribed just got a text message.
Yep.
Yep. Perfect. So you can kind of see how easy it is just by getting them to automatically enroll, or if you have an existing database, you upload it right into the system, and then you're off to the races engaging with them, kind of driving that conversation, right? Does anybody have any questions about kind of the platforms and text messaging effectiveness, or the mobile web apps, use cases, things like that?
We have one raised hand here. Nancy, Stanford Marriott, if you'd like to please ask your question.
Yeah. Go, Nancy.
And you can do that verbally, or you can type it in the chat, whatever's easier for you. If you want to come off mute and ask the question, you are more than welcome.
Absolutely. And if there's any kind of technical difficulties, you can always shoot me an email or give me a call. My information's right there.
Yeah, we're going to be sure to share everyone's contact information who's on this call as far as our panelists here. So don't worry about that. We will make sure that all contact information is shared. Nancy, I see you can't come off mute. If you want to just type out your question, we can go ahead and field it in real time. And in the meantime, Max, did you have anything else that you want to go over while we wait for Nancy's question to come in?
Yeah, I think the main point, and I think the main point of kind of this call to action with getting the three companies together here is, why limit yourself if there's all these tools, right? I mean, the analogy I kind of use is, if my car is broken and I have a tool bag, and in that tool bag is 5 hammers, or I have another tool bag that has a hammer, a drill, a screwdriver, a socket set, all these different awesome tools in it, which bag do I want to carry? You know, the one with 5 tried and true hammers, yeah, you just smash things with them all day long. Or you have this bag with 20 different tools in it, you know, where you can fix way more different kinds of problems from different approaches. And I think that's why this webinar, you know, everybody does kind of a different thing, is a different tool in your tool bag, and kind of can lead the charge in that aspect of things. And I really like that.
Yeah,
But,
and I just, you know, when we see, you know, our clients come to us and they think that and I shouldn't just generalize, but most people think, you know, you put on a hiring event and people will come, like, you know, the old saying, you know, build it and they will come. And it's obviously not the case. A lot of hard work needs to go into how you want to promote and market the event. And then you did all that hard work, and to Max's point, use the tools that you still have available to you to, you know, to get your show rate up. Today, we had 100 people register for this webinar. 50 have shown up. We didn't have any text messaging tools available through Eventbrite, which they should probably make available. But, you know, as an attendee, I wouldn't have minded, you know, a little text message webinar reminder. However, everyone did get an email reminder, or maybe 2. So you could see it's not as effective. It's definitely, and for our clients that are using text messaging and are definitely using recruitment marketing firms like Talroo, we definitely see a much higher turnout rate. We definitely see a much higher success rate. And obviously that's why we're here as well. Nancy, I do apologize that we couldn't take you off mute. I think I see your question here. Zach, you want to go through it?
Yeah. So Nancy has stated that she recruits at job fairs, and they have job seekers that sign into forms. Then she goes home, emails these folks, and personally texts them to apply. I can see how you can help, but would you mind explaining it in your words? So Team Talroo, Team Engaged by Cell, I think this kind of hits on all of our different all of the things that we do, right? All the things, ways we work effectively. So I think that Nancy's talking about how are we keeping people engaged and kind of like the nuts and bolts of it.
I like a little follow-up there too. It's exhausting. You know, we've built in some automation as well because
Yeah.
of that, as far as tracking hires. So go ahead. Yeah, you guys can.
Yeah. So that's the one thing I wanted to touch on too, and I'm going to go over this during the Premier Virtual portion of this webinar is our hiring metric tool, which Nancy, it actually automates that follow-up process. So if you are hosting a job event or career event on the Premier Virtual platform, what's going to happen is the moment you close that event, every one of the organizations that has participated is going to receive one email per week for 8 weeks, asking them who they hired where. So it's going to allow you to kind of automate that entire process. You said the time that you put in is exhausting. Put that time somewhere else. Let us help you with that, right? That's what we're here to do. It's not just about us hosting the events on our platform. It's not just about Talroo marketing the events. It's not about Engage by Sell, keeping the candidates engaged. It's a full comprehensive process. It's going to allow you to get people hired in the positions where you need them most. So I appreciate that question. If you have any more, please feel free to drop them in the chat.
If Max or Michael real quick want to touch on automation as well.
I think, Nancy, it's to keep in mind that yes, Talroo's running the event and attracting the right folks, but more, I'm not going to go super into the weeds here, but as Talroo, as the attraction engine, we own the second largest ecosystem behind Indeed. So those job seekers, those candidates that are not on the mainstream job boards, that's where Barry, myself, and the team at Talroo, we're attracting that other unique audiences. We're dabbing into more of the other talent pools that are not on those mainstream job boards. So there's a phrase that Barry always says, and guys, I'm giving Barry a compliment right now. So it's more the fact that we're over the last couple of years, I think recruiting definitely has changed fundamentally. We've had to get more creative in attracting talent, but with Talroo, we're implementing more of a diversified strategy and more of a diversified approach to recruitment. So we're just basically attracting those unique audiences, high level, that are not on the mainstream job boards. And that is the second largest ecosystem behind Indeed in terms of searches per month. So that's where Talroo is able to move the needle. Max, that was a longer soliloquy than what I expected. So I'll pass the baton to you.
No problem. Mine's simple. At events like this, whether it's virtually or in person, you already have them filling out those forms or documentations, right? That's kind of involving in the engagement aspect. You're going to have them scan a QR code or text in a keyword and just kind of put it in that process, right? Of, hey, text recruit to blah, 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 and I'll make sure that I follow up with you. But by doing so, they're going to automatically receive a text message right away that has a link to maybe the resume upload or whatever it is, right? And they're already going to be engaged. So you don't have to go home and sit there and manually type out your text message to go out to the 40 people. It's already going to be done. And then, with the click of a button, you just pushed out 40, 50, 60 text messages to all those individuals that have already opted themselves into the Engage by Sell platform. So
for sure. And Nancy, yes, to your point, we're very niched, very blue collar essential workforce. So at that entry level, that's where we're able to move that needle for those organizations. So yeah, hopefully that was.
As a platform, and strategic partners here, we, Talroo will be the first to tell us, yes, we're a good fit for this, event or not, right? So there are times when we have to use other, marketing options and firms, and that's all fine. We really just want you to have the best, obviously, successful event possible. And so if Talroo has a niche or a focus that doesn't fit a certain event, they'll just be candid. And like Barry said in the beginning, do they have the audience, right, to match? So there's not always just one, thing that's going to meet your demands as far as the right channel. Sometimes it's different channels. Barry also mentioned social media. Obviously, social media can be very successful for some people, but I think for certain job types, right? Obviously, the more skilled, the more certified, you have to do other things, but it's always going to be a mix. It's not just one job board or one channel. Max and Barry and Michael, thank you so much. We're going to move to the third part of this. So we're, we really want to plant the seed. You're attracting the right people, you're engaging them to show up, and then you have to hire them, right? And Nancy, Zach's going to take over the next part of this presentation and show you the platform. And, why are you using this instead of Zoom? Why am I using this instead of Google Meets? Absolutely. Why am I using this instead of just, a Calendly link and setting up an interview, right? So, so we're gonna, Zach's gonna get into that, and then we are gonna again take questions here at the end. So Zach, you can with that take off.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Team Talroo and Engage by Cell. Appreciate all the beautiful content. A lot of the stuff that we're covering here, these are questions I get asked on demo calls daily about driving attendance, keeping candidates engaged, right? So there's a lot of valuable information on here. And just so everyone knows, we will be circulating the recording of this webinar immediately following its conclusion. So like John just said, we've talked about marketing our event with Talroo, right? We've given ourselves enough lead time, but not too much. And the messaging about our event is clear, the kind of event it is. We have Engage by Cell, making sure candidates remain engaged with the event and the content leading up to the event. That's going to give you a higher attendance rate. So now we've done all that, right? Let's talk about the actual event itself and how that's going to look. So what I'm going to do is share my screen and show everyone the Premier Virtual platform. Premier Virtual, what we are is a virtual platform that's going to allow you to host anything that you can envision happening in an in-person world in a virtual or a hybrid aspect on our platform. So you're going to notice a few things on this platform, and everything you're looking at, the first thing I want to mention is going to be fully customizable. Every time you go to build a hiring event, you're automatically going to be directed to a dashboard, which is going to give you access to all the pertinent statistics in an easy to digest fashion. So you can see here, it says your customized banner logo, the title of your event, again, fully customizable depending on what you want to showcase to your candidates and the type of event that you're hosting, right? So I can change my banner logo. I can obviously change my title. What you can also do is you can see what that engagement looks like from the perspective of your attendees and your organizations. So what you're looking at here in this blue, this orange box, these are actually live statistics of what's happening in real time in your event. So I can see the number of attendees I have registered versus logged in, and most importantly, reach out to those who are not logged in. So that's a really key aspect of Premier Virtual, giving you full real-time control over your events. Now, this is my personal.
Zach, real quick, with booth activity, just showing the spikes, right, in attendance.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm going into next.
Yeah, it's helpful to see because that you could tie back into what marketing efforts you're doing.
Absolutely. So what you're looking at here, what John's mentioning, we have the booth activity and also the registration graph. The booth activity, like John just mentioned, it's going to show you what action's happening in your event in real time. So you can actually focus this up. You can drill it down to make it look exactly how you want it to look. But my favorite piece of information on this page is this registration graph. What this tells you is if you're working with Talroo, which of Talroo's marketing campaigns are successful and maybe what needs some more work. So I'm going to go over to this registration graph right here. I can see from December 1st to December 10th, I had moderate success in getting my attendees registered to my event. Then I can see on December 31st, I had a spike in registrations. Why is that important? You're able to see which of your marketing strategies are effective, and you're able to then create a best practices if you plan on hosting recurring events on our platform. So we're a really data-driven platform. We want to take all the information that candidates are giving us, that organizations are giving us, put that into practice and make it work for you. So with this registration graph and the booth activity, that's how we're doing that. Another feature of Premier Virtual, the ability to communicate with the entirety of an event. Imagine you're at an in-person event. Is it easy to communicate with the 1,000 attendees that might be at that event? Maybe if you're a keynote speaker, but if you're not, how are you going to get that done? What you can do with Premier Virtual, if I click on this little envelope in the bottom right-hand corner, I can send out a broadcast message to the entirety of my event. I can message just my organizations or just my attendees. Now, keep in mind on our platform, you see the word organizations a lot. Maybe you're just a single employer. Maybe you don't want to invite other organizations onto the event. Maybe it's just for you. Don't worry about that. We have many single employers on our website, including the big dog of them all, Amazon. As you can see, their event is divided up geographically. So no matter what, I'm always going to arrive at Amazon jobs. I can just click on the areas where I have the most interest. I see we have a question here in the chat. Let me pull this up. The definition of active, logged in, and not logged in. So yeah, Alan, what that means is people who are active in the event in real time. So you're going to be able to see those people who have registered but are not active inside of the event. You're going to be able to reach out to them either by email or via text. Now, a few other things I want to take note of here on this homepage. Again, we're back to our dashboard. We're always going to have a dashboard no matter what kind of event that we're hosting. I want to touch on something that was mentioned earlier, which is the video interview portion of our platform. So we have many ways for you to qualify candidates as they're coming on to Premier Virtual. This is my personal favorite way to do so. This is going to allow you to take your candidates beyond just the words on their resume. So what I'm going to do here is click on Add Interview Set. I'm going to label this just a test question. And then what I can do is actually record myself asking what makes you a good fit for position X at company Y? What I can then do is have my candidates record their answer in 30 seconds, 60 seconds, or if it's comprehensive, an unlimited amount of time. So you can see there the power of that, right? It's not just asking them, are you a US citizen, yes or no? And by the way, you can ask simple text-based questions on our platform too. We just feel that the video interview software, again, really gets that engagement, and it's going to give you a sense of the candidate's personality outside of just the words on their resume.
Because they're replying in a video. It's not like they're
Yes, correct. They're recording that in a video answer. So they're recording themselves answering the questions. And again, the questions fully customizable based off what you want to ask about your event. These are not cookie cutter questions. These are you asking very specific questions to you and your event. I see
Zach, there's a couple of questions in the chat.
Yep,
Yeah.
I see them. Okay. What was the cause for the spike in December? When was the event? Do you have last minute rushes that may create the spike? Okay, Mary, great question. So for the purposes of this demo, this is actually just a sample event. So this is not a real event. However, that spike could be due to engagement through Engage by Sell with marketing materials provided by Talroo. What I'm trying to demonstrate is that the marketing of your event is going to create a spike in registrations. That's why it's important to have that aligned marketing message. We're making sure we have enough lead time to get our message out, and we're using all the tools in our tool bag, as Max mentioned, by having the proper marketing, having the proper engagement, having the proper platform in place.
Yeah. I mean, Google, if you could have a tag manager on your things, it's always great, but you don't always have that. So maybe you did an email on the 31st and you didn't do anything else. You definitely can attribute that spike to that email campaign. So it's just another way that you can kind of see by date what the traffic was, and then see what kind of activities you had on the back end to see what supported that spike. But yeah, for this purposes, we're just showing how the bar graph kind of displays that information.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a great question, Mary. And you're going to see it too. If you come on to Premier Virtual, you start hosting events, you're going to be able to see, again, which of your marketing strategies is helping you to drive attendance, which of course is what this meeting is all about. Okay.
There's a quick question there from Laura.
Yeah, go ahead, John. Do you want to read it?
Do you use the statewide databases like Cal Jobs to find candidates that are already enrolled in our workforce programs and services?
So we at Premier Virtual personally do not use statewide databases. We have our own database of people that have been on our platform before, both in the capacity of organizations as well as attendees. I will toss it over to Talroo and Engage by Sell to let them comment on their use of those databases.
I feel like who's going to talk first? I feel
Michael, I'm gonna toss it to you. Michael,
So, I mean, great question. So to really piggyback off Zach, and Barry, feel free to piggyback off me. I'm going to reference our insights tools. So we're able to, one, see what's being clicked, seeing what's being searched, specific job titles in retrospect to those certain locations. So we're able to see all the performance, the volume within certain locations. And ideally, to John's point, if we're not able to provide, if we don't even have the supply, that's when we're going to raise our hand and say, hey, John, this might not be the best fit. But in our best case scenario, the guessing game is eliminated because what Barry and I are able to do, we're able to have complete visibility into all that data because of our ecosystem and our insights tool. But Barry, hopefully, I teed you up a little bit.
Yeah, those are good points, Michael. The important thing I think from Talroo's perspective is that everything Michael is describing is from our ecosystem and our data. So we are not ingesting any third-party data to inform our AI, to inform our search results. It is all based on the click activity and the user behavior, the candidate behavior that we see. With Talroo, all of the candidates that we generate for our customers are freshly curated. And
Barry, I'm sorry, would you say it's important because the people that are in the databases, they're active job seekers, right? What we're talking about is also getting in front of passive job seekers as well.
That's correct.
Yeah, and I think that's key because obviously who's in the database is already kind of like in your corral, if you will. So how do you get the new ones in and that are not maybe active but more passive? I think that's where these tools that you offer are so valuable because someone that wasn't actively looking could be your best candidate, but you would have never reached them. Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely. Right. You guys. Appreciate the question. I want to see, I think one more maybe. Okay, no more questions for right now. Thank you so much for jumping in there. I appreciate it. So next thing I want to talk about, just in regards to the Premier Virtual Platform, you have seen the ability to ask those video interview questions, the ability to engage your candidates within the platform. Now what I want to talk about is some of the important statistics that come to you as a result of your events. So we've had people apply for jobs. Ideally, there's been interviews conducted on the platform. We have video interview software. You can also do text-based interviews. But what we want to find out is, what did that amount to? What happened after my event? So we actually have 4 different kinds of post-event reporting that we can generate. This is the event report, which is going to show you all the statistics of the event. So it's going to show you unique visits into each booth. It's going to show you where resumes were submitted. It's going to show you if candidates were interviewed. You can even go so far as to pull chat transcripts from the chat conversations within the platform. Now, I did see a question that popped up, I believe was regarding an ATS. So let me go back to that here. Nancy, you asked, are you integrated with any ATS system? So that's a great question. We actually are not integrated with a particular ATS. What we do have is an open source API, and we actually have developed within the last 2 months our own quote unquote ATS within the Premier Virtual Platform. So what I'm going to do is I am going to show that off to you. What I can do is, let me go to my HMT event here. So you'll see here, we have on the master tabs of the pending organizations, you saw the reports. Right next to reports, you see hiring metric. If I click on hiring metric, this is going to list all the organizations that have taken a part in my event, and I can then pull very specific reports about those organizations. So I will click on Premier Virtual. This is going to show me where all the applications have gone for the Premier Virtual organization. And if I click on, let's say, deputy, I can get a more detailed description of what's happened with that job. So this is, Nancy, our own ATS that we have built into the Premier Virtual system. As soon as your event closes, this system kicks in automatically, and it's going to send an email to each of your organizations for 8 weeks, 1 email per week, asking them to fill out this information as far as who's in progress, who's interviewed, who's hired, and ultimately who was not hired. So yes, we do have that built into our platform. We are not integrated with any dedicated ATS, but this is available to you when you're using the Premier Virtual Platform. Great question.
Zach, that's important. I mean, obviously, if you host an event and you have multiple employers, but what if you're a single, enterprise, single employer? How would you use that any differently?
So no, if I'm a single employer, John, I'm not actually going to use the hiring metric tool. I'm just going to pull reports. I'm going to pull reports. It's all going to be internals. The HMT, that's really more geared towards the multiple organization groups that are hosting on our platform.
Like workforce. And with the open API, in case, I'm not that technically savvy, but basically, on the other end, if you did want our information to download into your system, we could make that happen.
Absolutely. That's my understanding of it too. You and I have about the same level of tech expertise. I just know I'm supposed to say we have an open source API. I toss that out and see what comes back in the universe.
Yeah, if they have good tech guys on their end, we introduce them to ours and they get along great.
Yeah, that's it.
The information can be uploaded, but it's funny how some workforce boards throughout the country have kind of pushed back a little bit or haven't embraced it as much as we thought it would. I know that people that are obviously using their ATS and leveraging their ATS and need to want this to be compatible. And so with the open API, you can pull all that information into your ATS.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, John. That is 100% correct. So I just want to show a few more things before I open it up for questions. This came up in the very beginning of the call. I forget who mentioned it. It was either Max or Michael that spoke about not just hosting virtual events, but also the ability to host things in a hybrid capacity. Hybrid meaning hosting virtually and in person. So please note, Premier Virtual software is geared towards hybrid events. We personally believe that hybrid events are the future of event hosting. So once I have my event built out up here, you see this little share button. If I click on share, what I can actually do is display a QR code. So I have an in-person event, but I also want to use Premier Virtual to host the virtual aspect of it. What I can do with my in-person event is post these QR codes. People are scanning these QR codes. They're immediately tracked in our registration data. So you can see who is, again, active and logged into your event. So the ability to have a hybrid event, very important part of Premier Virtual. I see we had one more question.
Yeah,
John,
I kind of replied through it because it was more about showing the recruiter experience and the candidate experience. That's a little bit more of an in-depth, demo on the platform that we'd be happy to do one-on-one with anyone. You can get in touch with
Sure.
Zach, with myself. We will follow up with the full recording of this webinar to everyone that registered, so you'll have that as well. But yeah, to show the complete, we do that as well sometimes on other webinars. So we'll invite everyone as well to one of those, because there is a lot more to it, and we really want to be respectful of everyone's time. There's really 5 minutes left in the 1 hour. We've been taking questions really throughout. We're going to leave it open again. While we do that and wait for some questions, Michael and Barry, if you have a couple of other, maybe closing comments on recruitment marketing, maybe just some of the real challenges you guys see, or some trends you guys can share with us.
Sure, happy to. The world is a little scary. If you can't follow the economic news and not think that Jerome Powell has a problem with people having jobs, and we worry internally that until he breaks the back of employment, rates will continue to go up. But for us, as I mentioned in the chat, our bread and butter is essential workforce, and the folks who we learned during the pandemic, we all need. And even in hospitality, they've learned that eliminating staff, maybe in the face of a recession, might not be their brightest move, because they're then going to have to hire all of those people back when things do inevitably get back to normal. And then they're going to have the same struggles they had before. So we're seeing really good trends in our particular specialty in terms of essential workers, that, knock on wood, if things remain even just adequate, we believe that will remain strong, that the hiring trends will remain strong. You see the trends with wages continue to go up, and it is competitive. So the white collar world is very different. So for all of us, white collar software, it's a little bit of a scary place these days. But for the folks who we all need, we're still seeing strength and growth and interest from our customer base.
Excellent.
Absolutely. Well said.
Yeah. And then one last context, and I'll pass the baton to Max. We're really speaking on the blue collar, and Max talking about techs and mobile app. Just please keep in mind that 85 to 90% of our traffic does come via mobile. So it's legitimately a perfect storm.
Absolutely.
And I think we all would all agree that's where that is essential workforce
Yeah,
is.
and I'd be remiss to not say Premier Virtual is mobile friendly at this point. Forgive me.
So there you go. But no, guys, we're excited. Any way Barry and I and the Talroo team can help, we're certainly here for everyone. So Max, pass the baton to you.
You definitely hit it on the head there, Michael, with just to the point of utilizing text messaging, the mobile devices with the blue collar workers, right? I mean, time and time again, kind of from a different aspect of our business is in the training and HR, and we get reached out to by massive companies that have these mobile workforces, right? And they're all blue collar people. They're not the guys sitting in the office like, probably everybody on this call is every day. These are the guys that are on the factory floor. These are the guys driving around fixing the broken sink in my house. All of these individuals that are looking for the next best job or the next best, pay raise or something like that. They're communicating by text message. They're communicating by anything mobile driven, which I think we're all in agreement on this call. So I think you said it exactly correct, Michael, that utilizing all the tools and all the mobile device things you can, that's going to be key moving forward.
Yeah, I think the next webinar is going to be on AI, guys. Get ready, because at the speed that everything is evolving, it's going to be amazing. Yeah, Michael, you were going to say something?
No, Max, I didn't know which Michael you were speaking to. I didn't know. Was it? I don't know. No.
Well, for everyone on the call, I want to thank you again. I didn't think we'd get this all in, but I just really, we want to help you be successful. It sounds maybe corny or whatever, but really we do. If you're hiring, if you're choosing Premier Virtual to be your platform, that's just one piece of the puzzle. That's just the hotel lobby. We make it as sophisticated as we can. We give you all the tools in place so you can make the best hire. But you got to get the people there, and you got to get them engaged to participate. And that's really what this team that you saw here today is about. If you're not obviously using us in particular, we still want to plant the seed that these are the 3 main strategies you need to make happen to be successful. And it's only going to get more challenging, whether it's blue collar or white collar. we all see the shortage, we all see the challenges, you know, it's just there. It's not going to go away. Like Steve, our CEO, apologizes for not being able to be here today. He got caught up in a flight, but he said, you know, we all know you just can't post a job on a job board anymore. You really got to be creative. You got to be creative internally, you know, with your social media, and then, you know, your external push, you know, whatever you're using to push. So we are going to have everyone's contacts information on the email. So Barry, Michael, you know, we're going to share your email, your information with everyone who
Along with the
attended,
recording.
and with Max as well. And then of course with us, if anyone wants a more in-depth demo on any of these platforms, you'll have that information there. So thank you all very much. We appreciate it. I hope you appreciated today's information.
Perfect.
Thanks, everybody. Have a
Everyone.
good day.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dave.
Bye.